Warning, I swear a lot.
On purpose.
It is currently 12 in the PM and you are watching The Foreman. I am your host, Foreman. And today we're going to do something a little different, although it's not that different. I've done videos in which I just talk about stuff before, but I'm hoping to create a bit more of a structure for it, make it a bit more of a repeatable format, kind of have it be this thing I can do regularly, although I've made these promises before and they don't always pan out, so we'll see. But first of all, I wanted to explain my reasoning behind this, and if it seems like I'm rambling too much, then bad news, that's kind of the point of this. But semi-recently, we upgraded our Wi-Fi, and now videos that used to take me 2 days or so to upload, even after it had been compressed and therefore the quality had suffered, now take 2 hours fresh from rendering, as in no compression required, just render, bang that shit online, 2 hours, videos uploaded. Now processing speed, processing the HD version, different story entirely. You can blame fucking YouTube for that one. But I can produce videos much quicker now. Now, of course, this is a godsend for me because all I want to do is make videos and I want to put them out as regularly as possible. But I knew after a couple days that I had to rein myself in because burnout is very real and I would very easily and very quickly burn myself out if I just tried to smash out videos every single day as much as I could. Bearing in mind, of course, that my average upload now is about an hour. It averages an hour now, I'd say. So initially, I decided to give myself Sundays off. No editing, no uploading. Leave it clean. Respond to comments, sure, but otherwise, Sunday would be a free day. And that's not a bad idea, but I didn't feel good about doing nothing on a Sunday, absolutely nothing. I just didn't, I would not feel happy about it. Don't get me wrong, I do stuff outside the channel, but I mean in regards to stuff in relation to the channel, I did not feel happy about doing absolutely nothing. So I came up with a compromise. Instead, I'll try to do one of these every Sunday. It varies things up. It's not difficult to make. This is really not difficult to make. Something will go up on Sunday, so it maintains constant uploads. You guys will always have something new to watch every single day, or listen, as I suppose the case will be today, although I will have gameplay up, but, that's just a visual element. We'll see how this goes, but to me right now, this seems like a good idea. But I've waffled long enough. I think it's time to get to the subject at hand, which is Cyberpunk 2077. So I did a series on this game, on this channel, which you can check out if you are curious. A full LP from start to finish, 20 parts, each part being about an hour or so. So if you want to binge watch something, I've got you covered. But Cyberpunk was a fascinating experience because look, you're not, unless you've been living in a hole in the ground, you are familiar with the state in which the game came out, and in fact, the state that the game is currently in, which is rough, to put it kindly. I'm going to put a pin in that. We are going to discuss that. Oh boy, are we going to discuss that. No discussion about Cyberpunk could be complete without discussing that, but I'm going to put a pin in it for now because you've all heard it before. We all know. Anyone who even knows what the game is knows about this. Instead, I want to talk about some of its more positive aspects. Now, I'm not a defender of the game in the sense that I'm like, oh, it's perfect, it did nothing wrong, blah, blah, blah. It did a lot of things wrong, right? This is not an acceptable standard for the industry, especially not AAA developers. But like I said, we're putting a pin in that for now. Let's just talk about the game itself. Ignoring, as hard as it is to ignore, bugs, glitches, frame rate drops. Oh my god, so many frame rate drops. Crashes, all that crap. Let's talk about the game and pretend for a moment, and I appreciate I'm really asking you to invoke the powers of your imagination, that the game runs perfectly, or at least adequately, okay? So Cyberpunk. When I did the first episode of that, I wasn't even sure I was going to do a full series. I wasn't sure what my plans for Cyberpunk were. Sweetman lent it to me, and I was like, why not record this? Why not have a look? Why not check out on the show? It's a good idea for a series because it's a game everyone's aware of, and that stuff tends to perform better. And more to the point, there was presumably a lot of ammo for me to laugh at the game because of what a shitty state it was in. But I remember I did the first episode, And immediately I was interested, I was invested. I was like, okay, yeah, this is pretty cool. The combat feels good when it works. The cutscenes are great when they work. The dialogue is fantastic when it works. The characters are enjoyable. Did I already mention characters? I don't know. This is very freeform. But that first episode, I was like, okay, not bad. I think I'll actually explore this game properly. Let's go into this, and I may as well do it on the show. I've already recorded an episode. Let's keep going. Why not? And as the episodes went on, as I played more and more, as I explored Night City, interacted with its characters, got into all kinds of antics and shenanigans, I was just sat there like, this is good. This is good. This is very well written, and combat is enjoyable. Like, when you get the fortified ankles, wow, combat takes a completely different path. It can just be the same. It can just be a first-person shooter if you wanted to. But you can also leap like meters into the air on top of a shipping container, sprint across it, drop down, kill someone. Their friends are coming along to stop you. You duck behind the wall, jump above it, loop around them. Verticality adds so much to that combat system. It becomes like Ghost Runner or Dishonored or Mirror's Edge. Like, it has that feel, which is very effective. And then the ability to have a full arsenal of guns, blades, melee weapons, explosives, your own fists. Gorilla arms are one of the greatest things ever. I adore gorilla arms. I think they're fantastic. So combat within Cyberpunk is good. It is good. I really like it. And the characters, V themselves, right? Now, I only played as male V, and I was a fucking cis-white male V. So you're not going to be getting any interesting perspectives from my interpretation of it. But V is a good character. Like, is he Geralt level? No, I'll be saying he from now on because my V, the V I made. Not Geralt level. But there are shades of it there. The character is intelligently written and performs the lines well. I brought up the voice actor in one of the videos. I can't remember their name right now, but I praised their voice work during, and by the way, I'll be speaking about spoilers freely here. Might not necessarily spoil everything, but spoilers will be discussed. This isn't really a spoiler though. The scene in which Victor is telling V that they've basically got a couple weeks to live, that the engram with Johnny on it is overwriting their brain and they're going to die. And male V, I don't know about female V, but I'm going to presume female V's performance here is good as well because I've heard no complaints. Male V's voice acting in that scene is fantastic, and Victor's is too. Like, just to be clear, you know, Victor's voice actor does great as well. It's a great conversation, dripping with tone. A tone that is sad and heavy and uncomfortable and miserable and hopeless. Despair. You feel it because, you know, we've all played video games, and regardless what problem a video game puts in front of you, you're like, well, yeah, but there's got to be a way to beat it, right? There's always a way to beat it. You can beat, it's a video game. The whole point is to overcome adversity, beat it. Even Mass Effect, where it's like, the Reapers are a fleet of hyper-advanced capital ships, basically, and you're a dude with a rifle, but you believe that you can beat them because it's a video game. You're gonna beat them somehow. It's not that kind of game where the Reapers would just win. But that's what makes Cyberpunk more interesting to me, is that, once again, I'm going into spoilers here, so please, if you have any interest in playing Cyberpunk, do not continue listening, because I don't want to spoil it for you, but in order to express my thoughts on this fully, I need to discuss things openly. The fantastic twist, for me, and maybe it's not that much of a twist, but I didn't see it coming personally, is that you can't fight this. The process of the overriding of your personality wins. You're going to die. That's it. It is terminal. It is literally terminal. V will die from this. It's interestingly presented because throughout the game, as V has more and more attacks from relic malfunctions, right? He has like nosebleeds, he collapses, he throws up, he has seizures. It's bad, it's rough. And you feel the weight of how bad the condition is, but you're still like, nah, we can do it, we can do it. We just gotta get Johnny pulled out of there. We gotta have our minds separated, and V will recover, and everything will be okay. Everything will be fine, we can make it, we will. But you get there and it's like, nah, it's too late. It is past the point of no return. Because prior to this, Victor tells you that, oh, you're approaching a critical juncture, which, you know, feels like a pretty standard narrative way of being like, this is the end of the game because you have to do something now or you're going to die. You know, this is the climax. But you do it. You, like, I can only speak from the perspective of my LP because I haven't explored the other endings yet, but like, you team up with the Nomads, you bust into Arasaka Tower, you fight your way through, you kill Adam Smasher, you get to Mikoshi, put yourself in there, and Alt is like, yep, I've separated you and Johnny, it's all good. And you're like, great. And she's like, not really. The transfer process went too far. Like, it is Johnny's body now. V as a construct, V's subconscious, V's mind is seen as a foreign entity to the body, which means the body will shut down, basically, in 6 months. Which is horribly tragic. It is truly tragic to have that happen because, you know, Cyberpunk ain't a short game. You've spent a lot of time fighting and overcoming challenges and interacting with the world as V and hanging out with Johnny. And just to have this, like, just to have it actually all be for nothing, from your own perspective at least, was good, actually. It's really good. It's very well presented. Now, for those of you who haven't watched my series, but are familiar with Cyberpunk, I mean, you know, you've beaten it or whatever, I chose to give Johnny my body. I was like, well, fuck it, man. I've got 6 months in this thing. You could live an entire lifetime. If I take a step away from it and really think about it, this is a no-brainer, because you can live a full life again. What am I going to do with my body in 6 months, right? Now, granted, there are many unfortunate things here, you know, like I left Pan Am, I left all my friends, I left the Nomads. And as far as my friends within game are concerned, I dropped completely off the map because Johnny obviously didn't want to deal with them because, you know, I think that's more tragedy than a single human could realistically withstand. He secludes himself, basically, in Pacifica, and then eventually leaves to go do his own thing, live a life somewhere else. But as far as, like, Mama Wells and Victor and River and all of them are concerned, V just fucking vanished. V's just gone. Pan Am knows what's up, but that doesn't make it any better. And it's tragic, but it's tragic and it feels right. It doesn't feel like they're throwing a shitty ending at you for the sake of having a sad ending. It doesn't feel like it's come out of nowhere. It doesn't feel like, oh, by the way, fuck you, it was all for nothing. It's like, yeah, no, what did you expect? And Johnny has a great line in that ending, actually, before you make your choice, where he's like, well, V says, I was just hoping there'd be a happier ending for everyone involved. And Johnny responds with, not in this city, not with people like us, not in this place. No, that doesn't happen here. This place is terrible. We are shit people. This is what happens to us. This is the only way it could go. And to my knowledge, bearing in mind I haven't explored all the endings, I don't think there's any way to save V. I think they have 6 months to live after the events of the game, and that about does it. Which is, once again, tragic, and a part of me really wishes that there was a way where I could do things correctly, follow a very specific series of events to save V somehow, to just make things work out. But I appreciate the fact that I don't think that's an ending. Don't tell me if it is. I want to find out for myself. But I appreciate the fact that that might not be an ending because that's not realistic. You can't just solve everything. You can't just make everything be okay all the time. Like, I have the same feeling about, and this is, you know, one of the more darker subjects within the game, but Evelyn's suicide. When naturally I was shocked when I first saw that because it comes completely out of left field. But once again, like the ending, it's not unexpected. It doesn't come out of nowhere. It feels like it comes out of nowhere, but it's not coming out of nowhere. Because Evelyn goes through some fucking shit. It's just that you save her and you're like, now she can just rest and she can recover and she'll, you know, we've saved this person. This person has been saved. They'll be okay. And they're not. They're not okay. They went through too much. They can't handle it. But it was a nice, it was interesting because it really set the right tone for this kind of ending to occur, because it sets that precedent of like, yeah, sometimes things just don't work. Sometimes you can't just be determined to fix. What the fuck was that? My screensaver? Why? Fuck, goddamn, Jesus Christ! Sorry, my computer screen went to black and it scared the crap out of me. You can't just have a positive mindset and a determination and a will to fix things, and then suddenly everything will be fine. It'll be fixed. Night City's a crap hole. I don't know if you've noticed. I don't know if you looked around much while you were walking around Night City, but it is a dive. The best you can hope for is to survive for a reasonable amount of time. I don't think people are happy in Night City. I don't know if anyone's happy in Night City. Maybe the Corpos, but they've got their own stresses. In the Corpo intro, where V was initially a Corpo agent before the game starts, they throw up from stress. Throw up. I've never thrown up from stress in my life. And, you know, I've had things happen, but never thrown up from stress. I've thrown up from pain, but not from stress. That is a violent reaction to external issues. So Corpos aren't exactly having a breezy time of it either. Yeah, they get the fucking suits and they get to have nice food and wine and stay in nice places, but that all comes at the cost of essentially their soul. No one's happy in Night City. They're not supposed to be. It's a bad place. Jackie was the only person who was happy in Night City, and he's dead. So, he was the only person who loved Night City, except maybe Johnny. But I'm pretty sure Johnny's opinion of that has changed by the end of the game. Jackie is the only one who loved Night City and died loving Night City. And to this day, I don't know why the fuck he loves Night City, because it is a horrible place. It is the worst. It is the absolute worst. But that guy was like an eternal optimist, and I think a necessary part of the game, because he was so eternally optimistic. He was a ray of sunshine in every scene he was in, which of course makes his death so much worse. Because he was literally the one bright ray of hope that you had. This stubbornness, this like inability to be persuaded that things will not work out. You know, he's like, everything will work out if we just go for it. If we just do it, we'll muddle through. We always will. We always do. And then you don't. You just don't. Sometimes sheer force of will can't do it. Which is difficult for me because I've kind of adopted that mentality, not from Jackie. This was before I started the series, but I adopted the idea of like, look, if I just work hard enough, and if I just don't give up, that's the key point actually, not work hard enough, because you can burn yourself out, you need to pace it out. But my point that I made to myself was if I don't give up, I can achieve most things. This does not count for relationships, by the way. On those you should give up, because that requires both people to not want to give up. If one person gives up, the other person kind of has to give up. That's unfortunate, but that's the way of things. I always clarify that point when talking about it, and I think it's because I'm terrified that someone, somewhere out there, will become a stalker because of my words. And they'll be like, well, Foreman said I should never give up, so I'm not giving up. And it's like, no, you should give up on that. You should definitely give up on that. You should give up on some things. But like the channel, for instance, is something I'm not willing to give up on. Maybe for better or worse, you know? Maybe it would be a better idea to actually count my losses at some point, but I enjoy doing it too much. I'm very passionate about it. But I'm getting off topic. This ain't Cyberpunk. So I talked about the gameplay, and I've talked about the story. I enjoy both of these things immensely. The soundtrack is great. I actually really like Samurai, which is a band called The Refused, if I remember correctly. Is that... Do I need to do research? Hang on. I was right. Refused. Yep. That's the real band. I really like Samurai. I really like the music. It's really good. I haven't talked about Johnny that much either. Like, when I first encountered Johnny within the game, I had multiple phases when talking to Johnny. At first, I was like, oh, look, it's Keanu Reeves. That's cool. You know, I think that's the reaction most people have. And then I was like, they're trying way too hard to make him cool. Now, don't get me wrong, the way he uses his pistol is dope, and that was excessively cool in the I don't even care if this is trying too hard, it's just awesome, because the way he twirls his pistol while reloading and shit, and then the fact that you can do it as well when you get that pistol is incredible. That is some of the coolest shit I've ever seen. They clearly were trying too hard to make Johnny cool. Then they were trying too hard to make him an asshole, because boy is he an asshole. And I also felt that, Keanu's voice acting was extremely flat, like really flat. These were all my initial thoughts. This is what I first felt while interacting with the character. But over time, shit, dude, interacting with Johnny is, oh, my shoulder. Interacting with Johnny is some of the most entertaining parts of Cyberpunk. Now, I don't just mean funny, although Johnny can be funny, but it's the most engaging, interesting. You're personally invested in your interactions with him, because he has an interesting mindset. He has interesting perspectives and opinions on the things happening around you, and he will often chastise you. And I appreciate the game sort of letting you fight your corner on these fronts. You can also agree with him, like you'll be like, oh well, he knows best, whatever. But it provides an interesting dynamic. I like the voice in your head. I don't know if it's a trope. I guess, you know, we got like Halo has Cortana and all that shit, so it kind of is. But I like how this trope is played. I like that he sort of exists in the world but doesn't. Like, he'll be standing around, he'll sit down, he'll be puffing on a cigarette that doesn't exist. He's not smoking, he can't feel it, but that's just what he did in life. So that's how he's portraying himself. It does, because it would be very easy to just have Johnny be a face in that little box when you get phone calls. Just have his face appear there when he's talking to you. It'd be very easy to have just done that. Could have saved themselves a ton of work. But it wouldn't be quite the same as having Johnny actually interact with you. And there are moments where, like, I think early on, he, like, slaps you or something, and because you think he slapped you, you've been slapped, right? You think he hit you. He has enough influence in your brain to make you think that he has hit you, therefore you have been hit. Which I always thought was interesting. And obviously the change in him from wanting to kill you to wanting to help you. The development of the relationship between V and Johnny, where they basically become best friends. Like, I mean, I guess it can go a different way depending on how you treat him, but I was always in support of that. And I found out that the way you talk to him, the way you interact with him, and the things you say throughout the game do have an impact, and they do change things, which I found to be quite interesting, because I honestly thought the game's endings were pretty fucking close cut to begin with. I thought it was like, right, you get here, make this decision, then choose this, this, or this, and then you get your endings. But apparently there's a little more nuance than that. Like I said, I've only gotten one ending, so I don't know. But I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, we put a pin in the game's problems, didn't we? We put a pin in it. But unfortunately, that's like saying, oh, okay, let's move this car out of the way. Let's just put a pin in this car. Right, we can't ignore it. It's an elephant. It's in the room. It stood right next to us. It has a pin in it, but it's hard to ignore. We have to come back to it. The game is not acceptable. I don't know how better to put it than that. The game is not acceptable at all. It is abhorrently bad. On PS4 especially. If you're using a baseline PS4, don't even fucking bother. If you're using PS4 Pro, I wouldn't recommend it. Only if you have like a PS5 or whatever the Xbox equivalent is, or a really good PC, would I recommend you bother playing it, bother paying for it. Because I didn't pay for it, which is why it was easier for me to forgive more of the game's flaws, because there are several reasons. A, I didn't pay for it. Sweetman lent it to me. Very grateful. And B, because I play a lot of games on a PC that would have been considered outdated in 2012, right? I'm used to jank. I also download a lot of mods and stuff, so I'm really used to jank and glitches and crashes and general fuck-ups within the game. With this knowledge in mind, I was like, I think I can deal with what the AAA industry considers to be a bit of a buggy game, because that usually means, oh, this texture didn't load in properly, or oh, it doesn't constantly do 60 frames per second. You know, some real petty shit that people tend to whine about when they buy games. Oh, this glitched a little bit. Oh, that model's clipping over there. Oh, no. And it's like, and when people bitch about this shit hard, it's usually like this happens once every couple of hours or so. I don't know. People get very sensitive about it. However, people were not being sensitive about this one. This is a car crash, or at least it would be a car crash if the game could accurately portray a car crash without the cars clipping into each other and then both spinning off into the Horizon Team Rocket style, which, yes, is a thing that happens. If people's face is actually loaded in within 2 minutes, yes. Indeed, if combat would not chug and slow down to the point where if you press square to reload, it will look like you're doing nothing, but if you look a little closer, you'll see the clip in your gun fall out and a new one fall in, like you're playing fucking GoldenEye 64 or something. Not even, something older than that, maybe System Shock. It is rough. Beyond compare. I have never, and bearing in mind, once again, I play like XCOM 2 on this bullshit ass computer with a million cosmetic and voice pack mods on it, and the Long War of the Chosen, of course, and Star Wars mods, and all of that crammed into it. And it takes 5 minutes to load a mission, right? Runs better than Cyberpunk, and that's not good. There's no other way to look at it. It's not good. I don't want to rag on Cyberpunk because I actually really like it, but it is not acceptable. In fact, I think I raised this point during the series, but I want to quickly confirm something, if I may. Cyberpunk released on PlayStation 4 Stadia? This was on Stadia? Oh no. How the fuck did that turn out? Anyway, released on PlayStation 4, Stadia, Windows, and Xbox One on the 10th of December 2020. It is currently, at time of recording, the 19th of November 2021, which means we are approaching a year since this game came out. A whole year. Wait a minute. Versions plan to follow in the first quarter, like PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS versions plan to follow in the first quarter of 2022. I'll get back to that. It's nearly been a year since the release of those versions on PlayStation 4, Stadia, etc, etc. There have been some updates. There have been some very hefty updates, and they have... Maybe they fixed bugs. You know, I have a friend, she goes through the patch notes, and she informs me that it has fixed a lot of bugs, but it has not fixed enough. And maybe that's unfair to say. Maybe. But it's true. It has not fixed enough. It cannot fix enough. It's not physically possible for it to fix enough, because the game cannot be fixed. You can't look at a pile of wood chips and you say you're going to fix it into a tree. I don't know, maybe you could, but it would take a lot of time. Probably wouldn't be worth it. But I want to get back to that thing that I just noticed, that PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS versions plan to follow in the first quarter of 2022. Should have just been that. Should have completely ignored. I now appreciate business problems here, right? Corporation money grubbing issues here. But PlayStation 4, Stadia, Windows, and Xbox. Well, maybe Windows. I don't know. The Xbox One? No. Shouldn't have released on a metal. Should not. Shouldn't have even bothered. Should have waited. Or focused all of that work on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S versions. Because if they focused all their work on that and ignored PlayStation 4 and whatever, who knows? Maybe they could have got it out this year. And it would have performed properly and everyone would have probably loved it. That's assuming that the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS versions are even good. Nowadays, I think if those versions come out and they're only mildly buggy, I think people will celebrate it as a success. However, imagine if we hadn't had the horrific launch of the previous ones, and then these new ones, came out in 2021, and they were quite buggy, and people would have hated it anyway. But imagine, this is a better scenario, imagine if these had come out only in 2021 or 2022, only on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS, and they were perfect, and they worked perfectly. Now, would this game have been the game that everyone chalked it up to be? No, because that game doesn't exist. That game can't exist. This game had way too much hype behind it. It didn't stand a fucking chance under the best of circumstances. But if it had come out like that, a lot of people would have been able to appreciate it, and I think it would have been appreciated. Perhaps not as much as, say, Witcher 3. Everyone loves Witcher 3, but people would be like, yeah, this was a suitable, reasonable, good follow-up to making Witcher. You know, this is good enough. It's enjoyable, it's fun, the story is great, really like it. But as it stands, this game's a fucking blight on 2020, really. It's just, the game, the way it is now, it's not acceptable. The way conversations don't work properly, the way dialogue doesn't load in cars, the way your car is, most cars that you can buy are too fast for the game. Not as in, oh, you can't drive them. Nah, you can drive them, but the game can't keep up with you. Literally, the game can't keep up with you. Things will not have loaded in at your destination. Dialogue will not load in. The game needs a solid minute or two once you've parked to fucking catch up. Some of the problems that can happen during combat are crippling, as in, I can't fight like this. Whether you're focused on melee or gunplay, it's not physically possible to fight properly sometimes. Maybe if you rely solely on quick hacks, yeah, maybe you could get away with it, but no. No, you can't fight like that, and it can happen at any time, seemingly without reason. Of course, there are things that provoke it, but I don't know what they are. Sometimes combat just doesn't work. I went through the all foods processing plant, you know, the place where the maelstromers are in. I went through that yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I can't remember. Nothing different to how I did it any time before. And it slowed to like 4 frames per second, and then stopped. Didn't crash. I should clarify, very important. It did not crash, it stopped. As in, I could pause, and I could open my inventory, and I could in fact save my game and load it, and then it loaded in fine. But it stopped. I've never seen a game do that. If the game just stops, that's because it's crashed. Nah, not this game. It just stopped. I don't know if that's better or worse, I actually can't tell. I think from the perspective of, you know, the person experiencing the problem, it's better than a crash, but really seems to hint at a larger problem, which is probably not even worse than a crash. Oh yeah, I forgot. Are you guys familiar with a quest within the game called Epistrophe? Which is where you talk to Delamain, the AI cab driver. And he sends you out to retrieve some of his cabs. If you're ever thinking of playing this game, I don't know, maybe you stuck around for the spoilers regardless and you're like, I don't care, I already knew stuff, but I might actually play the game myself. If I might make a recommendation to you, young sir or madam or anything non-binary, do not advance that quest line at all. Don't touch it. Do not touch it. Don't go anywhere near it. You will get the quest because because one of Delamain's cabs trashes your car. And the quest pops up. Don't go to Delamain HQ. Stay far away. Go nowhere near it, because that quest line actually soft locked one of my save files once. Now let me explain a little bit, because when you set up this quest line, those cabs are roaming around certain areas within Night City. I'm struggling to talk about this properly because I'm trying to condense my thoughts on it, but cabs will start roaming around certain areas of Night City. Once you get close, Delamain will call you and say, hey, one of my cabs is in the area, can you go get it for me or whatever. You'll find it, follow it around for a while. The cab itself, which is some sub facet of the AI personality, will call you and they'll have their own individual quirks or issues or whatever, and then you got to deal with that, and then you can take the cab back, right? Or the cab will go back by itself or whatever. Fairly standard stuff. However, anything in the game that occurs while you're driving a car already operates at a disadvantage because the game can't handle it properly. Phone calls in cars are not good. It puts a lot of strain on the game. Now when you're doing multiple phone calls consecutively, or another character perhaps is trying to call you, or God forbid you're riding shotgun in someone else's car and they happen to drive through an area where Epistrophe is taking place, chaos, absolute chaos, nothing, it's chaos just everywhere. It's a huge problem. But that's not the worst of it. I got to a point, and I didn't do anything to make this happen. It's not as if I overloaded the game with too much shit happening at once. I just decided, like, look, on this save file that I'm doing, I'm gonna go knock Epistrophe out straight away so that it's not a problem anymore, right? Just get it out of the way, get it done, focus on that, nothing else, get it done. And the cell phone for my character soft locked, as in it was constantly trying to load Delamain's dialogue but would never load it, which meant other characters couldn't call me. Which also meant Delamain couldn't call me. It meant nothing could happen in regards to my phone. It meant story could not happen anywhere. GTA actually approaches this better. When you start a story mission in GTA, it loads a cutscene, which refreshes things. And that would have been perfect for Cyberpunk, but unfortunately, because it's a bit more, like, it claims to be a bit more immersive, there are no cutscenes in Cyberpunk, except at the beginning and at the end. Because the idea is, you know, you're supposed to be experiencing it. The game doesn't want to take control away from you, except for in the scenes where it does, which is actually done for a good reason. But the result of this means that when something like this happens, there's no way to kick yourself out of it. I tried loading my saves. Yes, I did. I tried loading my saves. Did not work. Now my thoughts when this happened was like, look, I think I just need to try and finagle this in a certain way so I can complete the quest. Once I complete the quest, there'll be no more problems. And I did manage to finagle it a little bit so that I could continue that epistrophe. I don't even remember how I did it. That's why this sounds so weird, because I tried so much shit over such a long period of time, I don't remember what I did. But I managed to do it, and it was like, right, chase the cab down, right? The cab's getting away, follow it. And I was like, okay. And I did. I chased it down, and I cornered it, and I had successfully followed it. I had successfully caught it. Now the cab was supposed to call me to say, okay, I'll go back or whatever, and it never did, because it couldn't. Which means it just sat there, and my little cell phone window remained unusable. And I had officially soft-locked my game. I couldn't do anything. Couldn't really, I mean, don't get me wrong, I could move around, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do any missions. And I had to load not save, and I lost 2 hours of progress, which, yeah, that's not a lot, probably compared to things that other people have lost, but bad. Very bad. Stay far away from epistrophe until they release something saying we have specifically fixed epistrophe. Because that quest is a fucking trash fire. But I have been rambling truly for 42 minutes. I think it's about time we wrapped up. Thank you for listening. I really like Cyberpunk. I just wish they'd waited. I know they couldn't. I know the fucking money behind it were like, yo, we gotta ship now. We gotta ship now. We need that money now. Ship it now. I get it. I do. But I wish that they would have been able to wait. That, or if they had toned it down a little bit. I don't need to be able to see every fucking pore on someone's face in a game. I don't. I couldn't care less. I think stylized graphics are better than realistic graphics anyway. I wish they had either pushed it back or they had toned it down a little bit. Less background shit going on. Less high def detail. Don't need it. Don't need any of it. Just tone it down and make it playable. It would have been fantastic. But they didn't, and I can't realistically sit here and tell them what they should and shouldn't have done because I don't work in that industry, I don't know, and they had producers on their ass. So, what can I truly say other than I wish things had turned out differently? A fairly useless sentiment, but one that I hold nonetheless. Not dissimilar to how the ending is in the game as well. I wish things could have been different. But there, it's a good thing, and it's done effectively, whereas here it's just sad. No satisfaction, no goodness to it, it's just sad. But I'm gonna end there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. I apologize if this was a bit all over the place, but I've never done one of these for this long before in this kind of format. Leave your best guess in the comments as to which content creator I stole this idea from. If you guess correctly, I will acknowledge you. I plan to do this more in the future. We won't be talking about Cyberpunk. I've spoken about Cyberpunk now. This is all I wanted to say. Maybe if I have some kind of revelation, I'll talk about it again. But this show, this little mini thing that I'm doing is just designed to be a little thing to do at the end of the week where we just talk about stuff and hang out. It's supposed to be relatively low-key and relaxed. So let me know what you think. Let me know if there's something you want me to talk about. I'll come up with my own shit, but if you have suggestions, I'll think about it. But either way, we're done for the day. Thank you so much for watching. Whatever happens next time, and I've got some ideas, but I don't know. I'll think about them over the course of the week. I hope I see you there. Toodles. Goodbye.